The morning sun rose over New Eden Colony, like it had for the past 30 years. Captain Lisa Park stood on the balcony of the Defense Center and watched the golden light spread across the farming fields below. The wheat swayed in the gentle breeze while the corn stood tall and green. It was harvest season and the colonists were busy bringing in their crops. Lisa was different from most humans. Her mother had been human, but her father was an elf. This made her tall and thin with pointed ears and bright green eyes. She could live much longer than normal humans, and her senses were sharper. Many people like her lived on New Eden Colony. The colony was home to 2,300,000 people. Most were human, but about 300,000 were elves. The elves had come to New Eden 40 years ago when their homeworld was dying. The humans had welcomed them, and together they built something special. Dr. Amy Foster walked up the stairs to join Lisa on the balcony. Amy was a medical doctor who studied how humans and elves could work together. She was short with brown hair and kind eyes. She carried a cup of coffee in each hand and gave one to Lisa. "Another peaceful morning," Amy said as she sipped her coffee. "The harvest is going well. The elves say their bio-enhancement techniques have made the crops grow 20% better this year." Lisa nodded and smiled. The elves had amazing abilities with living things. They could make plants grow faster and stronger. They could also heal injuries much quicker than human doctors. In return, humans shared their technology and protected the colony with military ships and weapons. "Any word from the orbital station?" Amy asked. "Commander Kate Walsh says everything is quiet up there," Lisa replied. "No ships have come through the system in 3 days, just the way we like it." Commander Walsh was in charge of the space station that orbited New Eden. The station watched for enemy ships and protected the colony from space. It had powerful shields and weapons, but it had never needed to use them in battle. Down in the engineering section of the colony, Vera Lynn was working on a new project. She was a young elf with silver hair and blue eyes. Her hands moved quickly as she connected human computer parts with elven biocircuits. The combination of human technology and elf biology could create amazing things. "This new power system should give us 30% more energy," Vera Lynn told her human partner. "Maya, your machines and our living circuits work so well together." Maya was a human engineer with red hair and freckles. She had worked with elves for 10 years and loved how creative they could be together. "My grandfather would never believe humans and elves could be such good friends," she said with a laugh. In the council building, Zarathiel was meeting with the human leaders. She was an old elf who had once been a fleet captain before her people lost their homeworld. Her long white hair was braided with silver threads, and her purple eyes held deep wisdom. She wore the traditional blue robes of an elf diplomat. "The harvest festival preparations are going well," she told Mayor Janet Brown. "Both human and elf families are excited to celebrate together. The children especially love the mixed traditions." Mayor Brown was a middle-aged human woman who had led the colony for 8 years. She believed strongly that humans and elves were better together than apart. "It's amazing how much our cultures have blended," she said. "The children who grow up here don't see any difference between human and elf friends." As the day continued, people went about their normal work. Human farmers used elf-enhanced seeds, while elf healers learned human medical techniques. In the schools, human and elf children played together during breaks. In the workshops, mixed teams built new inventions that neither species could create alone. But high above the planet, something was changing. Commander Walsh sat in her command chair on the orbital station and watched her screens carefully. Her sensors had picked up strange readings at the edge of the star system. "Lieutenant Susan Davis, are you seeing this?" Walsh asked her second, in command. Davis was a young officer with blonde hair who had joined the Colonial Defense Force 2 years ago. She looked at her screen and frowned. "Yes, ma'am. There's definitely something out there. The energy signatures are massive." Walsh felt a cold fear in her stomach. In 30 years, nothing dangerous had ever come to New Eden. The colony was far from the main space routes and had no valuable resources that anyone would want to steal. "How many contacts?" Walsh asked. "I count over 200 ships," Davis replied, her voice shaking slightly. "They're big, Commander, much bigger than our ships." Walsh activated the colony-wide communication system. New Eden defense to colony control. We have unknown vessels approaching the system. Captain Park, please respond. Down on the planet, Lisa heard the message and felt her heart speed up. She grabbed her communication device and replied quickly. This is Captain Park. What's the situation? Over 200 unknown ships approaching from deep space, Walsh replied. They'll be in weapons range in 6 hours. Lisa's mind raced. The colony had 12 small defense ships and the orbital station. Against 200 enemy ships, they would not last long. Can you identify the ships? Are they from any known species? Negative. I've never seen ships like these. They're long and thin, almost like crystals. They seem to bend light around them. In the council building, Zarathiel heard the emergency announcement, and her face went pale. Her hands began to shake, and she grabbed the edge of the table for support. Zarathiel, are you all right? Mayor Brown asked with concern. The old elf's voice was barely a whisper. Crystal ships that bend light. After all these years, they have found us. Who? Who has found us? Zarathiel looked up with fear and sadness in her ancient eyes. The Keth Mori, the ones who destroyed our home world, the ones who believed that different species should never work together. Across the colony, people began to hear the news. Families gathered in their homes while emergency workers prepared for the worst. The peaceful morning was ending, and something terrible was about to begin. The crystal ships continued their approach through the darkness of space, bringing with them a message that would change everything for the humans and elves of New Eden Colony. The Kethamori fleet hung in space like deadly jewels against the black sky. Their ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Each vessel looked like it was carved from a single crystal that shifted colors as it moved. The largest ship in the center was 3 times bigger than New Eden's orbital station. High Dominatrix Silandra stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked down at the small human colony. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and silver hair that flowed like water. Her eyes were completely black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. She wore armor that looked like living metal and moved with her body. Disgusting, she said in a voice like breaking glass. Look how they live together. Humans and elves sharing the same world, mixing their bloodlines, corrupting each other. This contamination must be stopped. Subdominatrix Velnara stood beside her commander. She was younger with darker blue skin and shorter hair. Should we demand their surrender first? She asked. Silandra's black eyes narrowed. They chose to mix with inferior species. There can be no surrender for such corruption. Send the message. Down on New Eden, every communication device suddenly activated. The face of Silandra appeared on screens across the colony. When she spoke, her words were translated by the colony's computers, but her meaning was clear and cold. Humans of New Eden Colony, you have chosen to contaminate yourselves with the elf species. You have created hybrid offspring and shared your technologies. This cooperation is an infection that threatens the purity of all intelligent life. You have 1 hour to separate yourselves from the elves. Those who comply may be allowed to live as servants. Those who refuse will be cleansed from existence. The transmission ended, and silence fell over the colony. In homes and workplaces, humans and elves looked at each other with shock and anger. Many of the humans had elf spouses and children. The idea of separating was impossible and disgusting. Captain Lisa Park stood in the emergency command center with her mixed team of human and elf officers. That's not going to happen, she said firmly. We don't abandon our families and friends because some alien extremists demand it. Zarathiel entered the command center with tears in her ancient eyes. I brought this doom upon you, she said, sadly. The Kethamori followed us here. They destroyed 12 elf worlds before we fled to human space. You didn't bring doom, Lisa replied. You brought wisdom and friendship. We're stronger together than we ever were apart. Commander Walsh's voice came through the communicators from the orbital station. Captain, they're moving into attack formation. I'm reading massive energy buildups in their weapons systems. All defense ships, prepare for battle, Lisa ordered. All civilians, move to the underground shelters. Emergency services, begin evacuation of critical personnel. Dr. Amy Foster was in the medical center when the attack began. She watched through the windows as brilliant beams of light shot down. From the sky, where the beams touched the ground, buildings and people simply disappeared. There was no explosion, no fire, just empty space where things had been before. "They're dissolving matter at the molecular level," she said to her assistant nurse Kelly. "We need to get to the underground research facility. Take the medical supplies and the genetic samples." Up in space, the small defense ships of New Eden flew bravely toward the massive Kethmori fleet. The human pilots worked together with their elf navigators, using enhanced reflexes and intuition to dodge the enemy weapons. They managed to damage 3 enemy ships before being overwhelmed. Commander Walsh watched from her station as her brave pilots died one by one. "All remaining ships fall back to the planet. Protect the evacuation sites." She knew it was hopeless, but she would not abandon the colony. The Kethmori ground forces began landing in the major cities. Their warriors were tall and elegant like their leaders, but they wore black armor and carried weapons that fired pure energy. They moved through the streets with deadly grace, hunting down every human and elf they could find. Captain Lisa Park led the defense of the capital city. She had 200 human soldiers and 100 elf warriors under her command. The elves could sense enemy movements before the humans could see them, while the humans had heavier weapons and armor. "Remember, we fight together," Lisa told her mixed forces. "Use elf senses and human firepower. Make them pay for every street." The battle was fierce and desperate. The human-elf teams proved surprisingly effective against enemies who had never faced such cooperation. When elves warned of incoming attacks, humans were ready with heavy weapons. When human soldiers were injured, elf healers kept them fighting. But there were too many enemies, and their weapons were too powerful. One by one, the defense positions fell silent. In the underground research facility, Dr. Amy Foster hid with 30 other survivors. Half were human, and half were elf, including several children. She had managed to save important medical data and genetic samples from both species. "We need to document everything," Amy told the group. "If we don't survive, someone needs to know what happened here and how we live together." Zarathiel fought beside human soldiers in the final battle for the government building. Her old body moved with surprising speed as she used elf energy weapons alongside human projectile guns. She had been a fleet captain once, and her skills had not faded with age. "Captain Park," she said through her communicator, "I'm sending all our technical data to Earth. The humans must know how to fight these monsters." Lisa's voice came back filled with static and explosions. "Zara, get to the shelter. That's an order." "I'm too old to run," the elf replied calmly, "but I can still fight." She continued sending data until a Kethmori energy beam found her position. The last transmission from New Eden Colony came from Captain Lisa Park. She was trapped in the command bunker with a handful of survivors. Smoke filled the air and enemy forces were breaking down the doors. "This is Captain Lisa Park of New Eden Colony," she said into her communicator. "The Kethmori have destroyed our world because we chose friendship over racial purity. They kill civilians. They hunt children. They believe cooperation between species is contamination. Don't let our deaths be meaningless. Show them what humanity can do when you threaten our friends." The transmission ended in silence. Admiral Nancy Carter sat in her office on Earth and watched the final messages from New Eden. She was a veteran officer with gray hair and hard eyes who had served in the fleet for 30 years. She had seen many battles, but nothing had prepared her for this. "How many survivors?" she asked her aide. "None, Admiral. The colony is completely destroyed. 2,300,000 dead, including 300,000 elf refugees." Admiral Carter stood up slowly and walked to her window. Outside, she could see the massive shipyards where new vessels were being built. In 6 months, those yards would be working at full capacity, building more ships than the galaxy had ever seen. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," she said quietly. "Total mobilization order. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource is now dedicated to war production. The Kethmori want to see what happens when species cooperate. Let's show them." As the news of New Eden's destruction spread through human space, something awakened in the human spirit that had been sleeping since the ancient wars on Earth. It was cold and patient, and absolutely ruthless. The Kethmori had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked families and children who only wanted to live in peace. Humanity was about to remind the galaxy why they had conquered the stars. 6 months after the destruction of New Eden Colony, human space had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Every world with humans was now a war factory. Ships were being built faster than anyone thought possible. President Claire Adams stood in the orbital shipyard above Earth and watched the construction with amazement. Massive vessels took shape in the building bays while smaller ships moved materials and workers back and forth. The noise was constant as millions of people worked day and night. "How many ships do we have now?" she asked Admiral Rose Brooks, who commanded the new Titan-class warships. 650,000 completed, ma'am," Admiral Brooks replied. She was a tall woman with short black hair and muscles built from years of military training. "We'll reach 700,000 in 2 weeks." President Adams shook her head in wonder. "In 6 months, we've built more warships than most species have in their entire history. How is this possible?" "Anger and determination, ma'am. Every human wants revenge for New Eden, and the elf refugees have been helping with biotechnology that makes our ships faster and stronger." In the engineering labs on Mars, Maya Stone worked with a team of human and elf scientists. She was the woman who had worked with Vera Lynn on New Eden before the colony was destroyed. Now she channeled her grief into creating weapons that could destroy the Keth Mori. "The quantum disruptors are ready for testing," she told her team. "Zarathiel's final transmission gave us the key to penetrating their shields. These weapons should cut through Keth Mori defenses like they don't exist." Kira-san was one of the elf refugees who had escaped New Eden's destruction. She was Zarathiel's niece and had inherited her aunt's knowledge of Keth Mori technology. Her purple eyes were filled with sadness, but also determination. "My aunt died protecting the data that made these weapons possible," she said quietly. "The Keth Mori think cooperation makes us weak. These weapons prove they are wrong." The new human ships were different from anything built before. They combined human engineering with elf biotechnology to create vessels that were both powerful and alive. The ships could repair themselves, adapt to new threats, and work together like a single organism. Admiral Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UHS Retribution. The ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But it was just one ship among hundreds of thousands. "Ma'am, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies," her communications officer reported. "The Keth Mori have attacked 3 more systems." "Any survivors?" Brooks asked. "Yes, ma'am. The colonies had better defenses and most people were evacuated in time. But the Keth Mori are definitely expanding their operations." Captain Luna Ray led the special operations teams that gathered intelligence on Keth Mori movements. She was small and quick with blonde hair and green eyes. Her team included both humans and elves who could work together silently and deadly. "The Keth Mori are building forward bases," she reported to the Intelligence Council. "They plan to cleanse human space of what they call contamination. They see our cooperation with the elves as a disease that must be stopped." Dr. Jane Bell was a psychologist who studied alien behavior. She had spent months analyzing Keth Mori communications and actions. Her conclusions were disturbing. "This isn't just conquest," she explained to the military leaders. "The Keth Mori believe that species mixing is morally wrong. They think they're saving the galaxy from corruption. That makes them more dangerous because they believe they're doing the right thing." In the refugee camps, elf survivors worked alongside humans to prepare for the coming war. They shared their knowledge of Keth Mori technology and tactics. Many elves joined human military units as advisors and specialists. "The Keth Mori have never faced an enemy that fights with true cooperation," explained Elder Morthane, one of the oldest surviving elves. "Their own society is rigid and hierarchical. They don't understand how flexibility and teamwork can overcome superior numbers. The production lines never stopped. On Europa, massive factories built ship engines powered by human fusion technology and elf biocircuits. On Titan, weapons facilities created quantum disruptors and neural targeting systems. On Luna, training centers taught human and elf crews to work as one mind. Captain Mia Gray commanded one of the new destroyer squadrons. Her ship was crewed by both humans and elves who could communicate almost telepathically during battle. The elves enhanced human reflexes, while humans provided tactical knowledge and heavy weapons training. "We've run 1,000 combat simulations," she reported to Fleet Command. The mixed crews performed 30% better than single-species crews. The Keth Mori won't know what hit them. Eva King was unique even among the human-elf hybrids. Her father was human, and her mother was elf, but she had inherited the best abilities of both species. She could think with human logic and feel with elf intuition at the same time. I've developed new battle tactics based on bio-neural coordination, she explained to the Tactical Planning Committee. If we can link our ships with elf bio-circuits, the entire fleet can act like a single organism. No enemy has ever faced anything like that. As the months passed, reports came in from across the galaxy. Other alien species were watching the human military buildup with amazement and fear. Some offered secret support, while others tried to stay neutral. The Zalani Confederation sent supplies through hidden routes. The Vaxon Republic shared intelligence about Keth Mori movements. Even the normally isolated Crystalline Collective offered to help with ship construction. The entire galaxy is watching, President Adams told her War Council. They want to see if cooperation between species can overcome supremacist ideology. We're not just fighting for humanity and the elves. We're fighting for the right of all species to choose their own friends. Fleet Admiral Dana West was chosen to command the entire human armada. She was a veteran of 40 years, with gray hair and scars from a dozen battles. She had fought pirates and rebels, but never anything like the Keth Mori. 700,000 ships, she said as she reviewed the fleet reports. Every vessel crewed by humans and elves working together. Every weapon designed by mixed teams. Every tactic based on cooperation. If this doesn't work, nothing will. The final preparations were completed on a cold morning in December. The massive fleet assembled in 17 different star systems, each force larger than most species' entire navies. The ships were painted in colors that honored both human and elf traditions. President Adams gave the final authorization from her office on Earth. Around her, the walls displayed images of New Eden Colony as it had been before the attack. Human and elf children playing together. Families sharing meals. Scientists working on projects that neither species could complete alone. The Keth Mori destroyed New Eden because they couldn't tolerate the sight of different species living in harmony, she said in her final broadcast to the fleet. They called our cooperation contamination. They called our friendship weakness. Today we prove that cooperation is the strongest force in the universe. Fleet Admiral West received the authorization and gave the order that would change galactic history. All fleets, execute Operation Unity. Show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our families. 700,000 human ships began moving toward Keth Mori space. The largest military force in galactic history was about to deliver a lesson in the power of cooperation. The Keth Mori had started this war to prove that species should remain separate and pure. Humanity was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. The human armada emerged from hyperspace like an unstoppable tide of metal and fury. 700,000 ships spread across the Kepler 442 system in perfect formation. The Keth Mori forward base that had seemed so powerful now looked tiny and helpless against the human fleet. Captain Mia Gray stood on the bridge of her destroyer UHS Vengeance and watched her mixed crew work in perfect harmony. Human officers operated the weapons, while elf specialists managed the bio-neural targeting systems. They moved together like dancers who had practiced for years. Enemy base is powering up their defenses, reported Lieutenant Carol White, her human tactical officer. I sense fear from their command center, added Thindarl, her elf navigator. They have never seen so many ships working as one. The battle began with a coordinated assault that no single species could have achieved. Human ships provided heavy firepower, while elf bioships disrupted enemy communications. The quantum disruptors tore through Keth Mori shields like they were made of. Paper Fleet Admiral Dana West commanded the assault from her flagship UHS Retribution. Around her, holographic displays showed the battle from 1,000 different angles. Every ship in the fleet was connected through elf biocircuits that allowed instant communication and coordination. First wave, maintain formation, she ordered. Second wave, target their command structures. Third wave, prepare to intercept any fleeing vessels. The Keth Mori base commander, High Dominatrix Linvera, watched her defenses crumble with growing horror. She had fought dozens of species over the centuries but had never seen anything like this human attack. How are they coordinating so many ships? She demanded of her tactical officer. Unknown, Dominatrix. Their vessels seem to share a collective consciousness. Our disruption weapons have no effect. Captain Luna Ray led the boarding operations against the Kethmori Command Center. Her Special Forces team included both human soldiers and elf warriors who could sense enemy movements through walls. They moved through the alien corridors like shadows of death. Remember, we need prisoners for intelligence, she told her team. The elves say these stations contain data about their whole empire. The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the Kethmori forward base was completely destroyed and over 50 enemy ships had been captured or destroyed. Human losses were minimal thanks to the enhanced coordination between species. Dr. Sarah Clark interrogated the captured Kethmori officers on one of the human ships. She was a specialist in alien psychology who had studied their behavior for months. What she discovered was both fascinating and disturbing. They're genuinely afraid of genetic mixing, she explained to Admiral West. The sight of human-elf hybrids causes them actual psychological distress. They see cooperation between species as a form of contamination that threatens the natural order. High Dominatrix Linvera was brought before the human commanders for questioning. She was tall and elegant like all Kethmori, but her black eyes showed genuine fear when she saw the mixed human-elf crew. "You have already been contaminated," she said in her crystalline voice. "The infection spreads through you like a plague. Soon all pure species will be corrupted by your example. You destroyed New Eden Colony because humans and elves chose to live together in peace." Admiral West replied coldly. "You murdered children because their parents were from different species. You started this war." "We tried to save you from yourselves," Linvera insisted. "Purity is strength. Mixing is weakness. You will understand when your mongrel offspring prove inferior to pure bloodlines." Ava King stepped forward, and Linvera actually stepped back in horror. Ava was clearly half human and half elf, representing everything the Kethmori feared and hated. "I am what you call contaminated," Ava said calmly. "I have human logic and elf intuition. I can think faster than pure humans and feel deeper than pure elves. Your fear of cooperation makes you weak, not strong." News of the victory spread across human space and beyond. Other alien species who had suffered under Kethmori expansion began to hope that the reign of genetic supremacists might finally end. The Zalani Confederation openly declared support for humanity. The Vaxan Republic offered to share intelligence about Kethmori strongholds. Even the mysterious Void Walkers sent encrypted messages of encouragement. But the Kethmori Empire was vast and ancient. High Dominatrix Zayanara, supreme commander of their forces, began recalling fleets from across their territory. She ruled from the throne world of Zethmara and commanded millions of ships. "The human contamination is spreading faster than we anticipated," she told her war council. "They have turned other species against us with their poison ideology. We must accelerate the cleansing." Zaynara was the oldest and most powerful of the Kethmori leaders. Her skin was pale silver, and her hair was white as starlight. She had ruled for 3,000 years, and had never known defeat. "Prepare the purity weapon," she ordered. "If we cannot cleanse species one by one, we will sterilize entire sectors of space. Nothing that has been contaminated by cooperation will survive." Captain Nina Hope received intelligence reports about the Kethmori superweapon while her task force patrolled the border systems. She was a young officer with brown hair and determined eyes who had lost her family on New Eden Colony. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups in the Kethmori core systems," she reported to Fleet Command. "Our elf specialists think they're building some kind of quantum virus weapon." The human fleets began converging on the Kethmori home systems. 17 separate armadas moved through space in perfect coordination. Each fleet included both human warships and elf bio-vessels working together. On the Kethmori throne world, Elder Architect Morganth studied ancient records in the Forbidden Archives. He was older than even Zaynara, and remembered when his people had been different. The truth he discovered filled him with horror. "We were not always pure," he whispered to himself as he read the ancient texts. "Long ago, we too were multiple species working together. We became Kethmori through cooperation, not purity. We have become the thing we once were, but we have forgotten. The final battle began when human scout ships reached the outer defenses of Zeth Mara. The Kethemori had assembled over 2 million vessels to defend their homeworld, the largest fleet in their history. Admiral West coordinated the attack from her command ship, while Eva King worked with elf bio-coordinators to link every human vessel into a single fighting organism. The battle would test whether cooperation could overcome numerical superiority. "All fleets, execute final approach," West ordered. "Remember what they did to New Eden. Remember the children they murdered. Show them the price of attacking innocent families." The space around Zeth Mara erupted in fire and light as over 3 million ships engaged in the largest battle in galactic history. Human vessels worked in perfect coordination, while Kethmori ships fought with individual excellence, but no teamwork. Captain Gray led her squadron through the enemy lines like a knife through silk. Her mixed crew anticipated each other's actions perfectly while the enemy struggled to coordinate their much larger numbers. "Target their command ships," she ordered. "Eva's tactical analysis shows they can't fight effectively without centralized control." The battle raged for days across multiple star systems. Human-elf coordination proved superior to Kethemori individual skill. Ships that had seemed invincible when fighting separately fell quickly when faced with perfectly coordinated team tactics. High Dominatrix Zaynara watched her empire's greatest fleet being systematically destroyed by forces that shouldn't have been able to work together. Her black eyes filled with something she had never felt before: doubt. "How is this possible?" she asked her surviving commanders. "Cooperation should make them weak and confused. Instead, they fight like a single mind controlling millions of bodies." Elder Morganth appeared on her command bridge carrying the ancient records he had discovered. His old eyes were filled with sadness and regret. "Because cooperation is our true nature," he said quietly. "We forgot who we really were. The humans and elves remember what we have lost." The final assault on Zeth Mara began as human and allied forces broke through the last defensive lines. The cooperation between species that the Kethmori had tried to destroy was about to bring down their empire forever. The final battle for Zeth Mara shook the very foundations of space and time. Human and allied fleets surrounded the Kethmori homeworld, while millions of ships fought in the darkness between stars. The cooperation that had started on New Eden colony was about to change the galaxy forever. Captain Nina Hope led the assault on the planet's surface. Her Marines worked alongside elf bio-warriors and soldiers from a dozen other species who had joined the fight against Kethmori supremacy. They moved through the crystal cities like an unstoppable tide of justice. "Remember, we're here to stop their superweapon," she told her mixed forces. "Intel says it's hidden in the Central Pyramid. If they activate that quantum virus, it could kill every mixed species population in the galaxy." The Kethmori defenders fought with desperate fury, but their rigid tactics were no match for the fluid cooperation of the Allied forces. Human heavy weapons cleared paths while elf scouts found hidden passages. Other alien species contributed their own unique abilities to the assault. In the throne chamber of the Central Pyramid, High Dominatrix Zaynara made her last stand. She was surrounded by her elite guard, but she could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. Her silver skin had turned pale with fear and rage. "Activate the purity weapon," she ordered her technicians. "If we cannot cleanse the galaxy slowly, we will do it all at once. No contaminated species will survive." Elder Morganth stood before the weapons control panel with tears in his ancient eyes. He had helped design this terrible device thousands of years ago when the Kethmori first became obsessed with genetic purity. "I cannot do this," he said quietly. "I have remembered what we truly are. We were once many species working together. We became powerful through cooperation, not purity." Zaynara's black eyes blazed with fury. "You are contaminated with their poison ideology. Guards, eliminate the traitor and activate the weapon." But the guards hesitated. Many of them had been questioning their beliefs as they watched the incredible effectiveness of the Allied forces. How could cooperation be weakness when it was defeating their greatest armies? Captain Hope and her team burst into the throne chamber just as Zaynara reached for the weapon controls herself. The final confrontation would be between the leader who preached purity and the soldiers who embodied cooperation. "Stop right there," Hope commanded, her weapon trained on the Kethmori leader. Beside her stood human marines, elf warriors, Zalani assault troops, and Vaxxan specialists. They represented everything Zaynara had tried to destroy. "You see?" Zaynara said with contempt. "Look at yourselves. Mixed groups of inferior species pretending to be strong. You are abominations against the natural order." Eva King stepped forward from among the allied soldiers. Her mixed heritage was clearly visible, and it made Zaynara step back in instinctive revulsion. "I am human and elf," Eva said calmly. "I think with human logic and feel with elf intuition. I am stronger than either species alone. Your hatred of cooperation is what made you weak." The battle in space continued to rage above the planet. Fleet. Admiral West coordinated over 1 million ships through bio-neural links that connected every vessel into a single fighting organism. The sight was beautiful and terrible as ships moved in perfect harmony. "Final push," she ordered. "All fleets, converge on the remaining enemy strongholds. Show them what unity can accomplish." Dr. Sarah Clark worked frantically to disable the purity weapon while the battle raged around her. The device was designed to release a quantum virus that would prevent genetic compatibility between any species. It would end cooperation forever. "I need 5 more minutes," she called to Captain Hope. "This thing could sterilize half the galaxy if it activates." Zaynara made a desperate lunge for the weapon controls, but Elder Morganth blocked her path. The two ancient Keth Mori faced each other across 3,000 years of history and ideology. "You have forgotten who we really are," Morganth said sadly. "We were never pure. We were cooperation made manifest. We are destroying the very thing that created us." "Lies and contamination," Zaynara snarled. "Purity is strength. Mixing is death." But her words rang hollow as the sounds of Allied victory echoed through the crystal corridors. The most successful military operation in galactic history was being carried out by dozens of species working together. Dr. Clark finally succeeded in disabling the weapon, just as Zaynara broke past Morganth's defenses. The Keth Mori leader reached the controls but found them dead and useless. "No," she whispered. "The contamination will spread. The galaxy will be corrupted by cooperation." "The galaxy will be healed by cooperation," Captain Hope replied. "Your empire of hate is over." The battle ended with the capture of Zethmara and the surrender of the remaining Keth Mori fleets. Without their leadership, the rigid hierarchy collapsed quickly. Some die-hard supremacists fled to distant galaxies, while others, led by Elder Morganth, chose to abandon their ideology of purity. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change. The Galactic Cooperation Council was established with Earth as its headquarters. Representatives from hundreds of species came together to write a charter promoting peaceful coexistence and mutual support. Ambassador Lily Chen led the efforts to create the new galactic government. She was a skilled diplomat who understood that lasting peace required more than military victory. It required changing how species saw each other. "The Keth Mori taught us something important," she told the assembled delegates. "Fear of cooperation is the root of galactic conflict. When species work together, they become stronger than the sum of their parts." The New Eden Memorial Station was built at the site of the destroyed colony. It served as both a monument to those who died and a symbol of what could be achieved when different peoples chose friendship over fear. Zaralyn was the daughter of the elf hero Zarathiel, who had died defending New Eden. She graduated from the new Interspecies Military Academy with highest honors. Her class included humans, elves, Zalani, Vaxxan, and dozens of other species. "My mother died believing that cooperation was stronger than hate," she said in her graduation speech. "Today, we prove she was right. Together, we are unstoppable." Master, Engineer Kara Swift designed the memorial stations that were built throughout the galaxy. Each one promoted cooperation between species and served as a reminder that diversity was strength, not weakness. The former Keth Mori territories were rebuilt with mixed populations. Humans, elves, and other species worked together to heal worlds that had been damaged by supremacist ideology. The crystal cities were transformed into symbols of unity rather than purity. Admiral Lisa Park, the half-human, half-elf survivor of New Eden's destruction, was promoted to lead the new Galactic Defense Force. Her mixed heritage made her a perfect symbol of the cooperation that had saved the galaxy. We learned something important from this war, she told the graduation ceremony at the Interspecies Academy. When you attack one of us, you attack all of us. When you threaten cooperation, you face everyone who believes in unity. President Adams gave the final speech at the dedication of the New Eden Memorial. Around her stood representatives of hundreds of species, including reformed Keth-Mori, who had abandoned their supremacist beliefs. The Keth-Mori believed that cooperation between species was contamination, she said to the assembled crowd. They sought to cleanse the galaxy of what they saw as impurity. They were wrong about everything. Today, as we remember New Eden Colony, we don't mourn the death of isolation. We celebrate the birth of true galactic civilization. Children from dozens of species played together in the memorial gardens while their parents worked side by side in the surrounding facilities. The sight that had once horrified the Keth-Mori was now the foundation of galactic peace. In the years that followed, the galaxy prospered as never before. Trade flowed freely between species, scientific discoveries accelerated through cooperation, and conflicts were resolved through dialogue rather than war. The Keth-Mori had tried to prove that species should remain separate and pure. Instead, they had proven that cooperation was the most powerful force in the universe. Their legacy was not purity, but unity, not separation, but synthesis. The children who grew up in this new galaxy would know cooperation as natural and normal. They would see diversity as strength and unity as the foundation of peace. The fear that had driven the Keth-Mori to war would seem as ancient and foolish as any other superstition. On the anniversary of New Eden's destruction, Admiral Park stood before the memorial and remembered the colonists who had died simply for choosing friendship over fear. Their sacrifice had given birth to a galaxy where cooperation was valued above purity, where unity was stronger than division. They tried to teach us that working together was weakness, she said to the assembled crowd. We taught them that cooperation is the strongest force in the universe. Above them, the combined fleets of the Galactic Cooperation Council patrolled the stars, ensuring that no species would ever again face extinction for choosing unity over isolation. The galaxy had learned the lesson that New Eden Colony had died to teach. Cooperation was not contamination, it was evolution.